Hello, and welcome back to PS We Have No Plan. I'm Payton Smith calling in from LA, and I do not have my wonderful, amazing co-host Emily McManus with me. She is off packing for her big Europe adventure next week, and I am solo podcasting this week, which feels very strange, and I had to light a candle and get a blanket because I'm kind of nervous. But we're here, we're doing it, and yeah, it's going to be a bit about me, and Emily's going to do one with a bit about her, and we're going to talk about our year ahead of what one word we're trying to evoke. So without further ado, here is my solo episode. So today's episode, I'm going to share the word that I'm trying to evoke for the year, and maybe it will encourage you to do the same, set a word, or maybe you'll get some, ideas of activities to try when I share some of the things that I'm going to try and do this year. My word is inspiration. I think in the past few years, I've had this creative rebirth, and I know I'm not alone in that. I know a lot of people experienced this when COVID hit and we were all quarantined. I certainly did. I turned to creativity in a way I've not turned to it before, I turned to it in a way that I hadn't turned to it in a while. I think when I was much younger, which a lot of you know, I was a theater kid. I loved creativity. I was obsessed with acting. I took voice lessons and singing lessons, and I was really angsty growing up. I wrote a lot of short stories. I was a writing major in college. I took fiction and poetry and music and all these different courses that were 2.5 hours long talking about my feelings. So I've always sort of been around that and used it as a tool to express myself. But during COVID, I reminded myself of that. I think I lost it a little bit right after college, and starting the corporate world, it's tough and it's a bit soul-sucking. For me, at least it was. And COVID allowed me the time and space to connect with myself again. So anyways, it's a really long story to say. The past few years, I've had this creative rebirth. I started a blog, which is called PSM Blogging. I've talked about it before. I connected with other creative women like myself and learned about their side hobbies or small businesses or creative passions, and used that as a source of inspiration for myself. That's how I met Emily. That's why we started PS We Have No Plan, and this podcast, and are building this brand. I switched jobs from a more of a corporate-y environment to a more creative one. And then, within 10 months, it still wasn't as creative as I wanted it to be. So I switched teams within that job, or within that corporation. Now I'm on a brand strategy team where I work a lot on just much more creative projects than I ever have before. So even in my day job, I have been focused more on creativity. And I fell in love with TikTok. That's another thing that happened over the last few years. And I've been posting short form videos, capturing everyday moments, editing, learning how to set up a scene, what songs to pick, how to match cuts of a scene to a song. I've just explored more, I guess, with creativity. I've been writing songs and music for years now, and just played with creativity a lot more. And I think that foundation was essential for me to do anything. Like I really had to go through that time. So I'm setting the stage for why my word is inspiration this year. And I think I'm sharing it because maybe you're in a similar spot as I was, where how do you even find inspiration, right? Like, how do you even explore creativity? Like, what does that word even mean? And for me, I think the way that I got to the place I am now, and in a second, I'll talk about where I want to go from here, but I think it's important to kind of talk through the foundation of it all. So how I got to the place now is three key things. One, I worked on my self-confidence. I think the creative realm is super intimidating. There's a lot of imposter syndrome, calling yourself an artist or a creative, because again, what does it even mean? Everyone is creative. Everyone is an artist. Everyone can express themselves in that way. But the people who quote unquote are successful at it are immensely talented. And it's intimidating to even dip your toe in that world. And for a long time, like I mentioned, I've always been creative and I've always been interested in that. But for a long time, I kept it to myself. So I worked on my self-confidence and I worked on conveying my interests outwardly, like not just keeping it to myself, sharing it with friends. When I wrote a song, sending it to a friend that I felt safe to. And when I had a blog post that was a bit more vulnerable, posting it online anyways. And just, working on my self-confidence with creativity and putting myself out there in that way. Because that's a huge part of it, is just taking that leap of faith and sharing your work. It's scary as fuck. Sorry, I tried not to swear this thing, but it is. It's scary as fuck. Secondly, I committed to reading more, watching more movies, watching more TV shows, watching the award shows, and understanding, how it all works, like getting to know the entertainment world and the creative world, and learn about songs and production. And I think also through that research, I was able to see where my natural interests lie. So for example, something that really came up in the last few years, Wednesday, recently, it's not even the last few years, this year, or in 2022, I fell in love with Wednesday, the show on Netflix. A lot of you know this. If you have been around me, I'm obnoxious as hell about talking about it. I think it's so powerful. The scripting is great. The casting is great. The costume design is great. The direction is great. The cinematography is beautiful. It's nostalgic. I grew up loving the Addams Family, so I love that this is kind of being reimagined. I love that they brought in Christina Ricci, who is the original Wednesday Addams. I think Jenna Ortega was born to play this role. Colleen Atwood and Tim Burton, who are, I believe they've worked together for a long time. Colleen is an amazing costume designer, and Tim is obviously a storyteller at his core. So this is his first TV series. I could go on and on. Everything about it I loved, and I felt very, very inspired by. So instead of rolling my eyes, being like, this is a young adult thing that kids enjoy, it's a Netflix series, like, okay, really? Instead of doing that, I researched it. I learned about all the ins and outs of how it went, of how they created it, why they chose to film in Romania, why this was Tim's, first TV show, why he chose to take it on, and how he built how he cut Jenna Ortega's bangs to get the perfect modern Wednesday Addams, and like all these things. I just leaned in and enjoyed it. And I that's just one example, but I was doing that for a lot of TV and movies, and watching it with a more attentive eye and trying to understand it and really learn about the world. That was a huge foundational part of just being creative and like getting myself to this creative stage. And then the last thing probably is the most important thing. Well, they're all important, but surrounding myself with dreamers. I mean, everyone knows Emily is one of my best friends now, but she has changed my life. And it sounds dramatic, but she has. And people like Emily are so rare. And, the sky is the limit with Emily. I throw something out there and she's like, why not this? Why not that? And I'll have a wild idea and she'll love it and share that excitement. And she never rolls her eyes at me. And she never says that's silly or that's too hard or okay. And she never changes the subject and interrupts me. And she never does any of that because she's genuinely interested in hearing every ounce of detail I have around a dream and then contributes to it and pushes it further. And I do the same for her. And so surrounding myself with dreamers, surrounding myself with people who push my creativity further, and I feel that same inclination to do, the same thing for them. Like it's the ebb and flow. And I'm just not putting up with people who put me down anymore and put my interest down anymore and roll their eyes when I talk about something I'm interested in. I think Taylor Swift might have said this quote, but it's something like, the worst type of person is someone who puts down something you love. It doesn't matter how silly it is. It could be as silly as, I don't know. Nothing is silly to me. Nothing is too small or stupid to me. If you have an interest and it drives you and it moves you forward, that's awesome. That's amazing. That's beautiful. So anyways, that's the last kind of thing. So over the past few years, those are the 3 foundational things that I've done and learned about myself that have gotten me to this place today where I am and all those cool accomplishments that I've gotten to today. The reason why inspiration is my word for the year ahead is because I want to go deeper with it. I want to build upon this foundation that I've created for myself and, learn more about the creative realm. So I think a big piece of it is living in the city that I live in. I live in LA, and that was such a huge blessing in disguise. And I say it's a blessing in disguise because my husband started residency for general surgery, so I never see him. And I'm left alone for the first time in a long time, especially right after COVID. It was quite a jarring shift, and I was in a new city and I didn't have the typical people that I was seeing day to day around me. Even though I had a great network of friends here, it was just different. Everything was new and I felt very alone. And it was no one's fault. It wasn't my own fault. And I was seeing people and I was working through it with Luke and trying to see him as much as I possibly could. It was just a time in life where I felt lonely. It was a big change. My parents moved from our home that we had lived in for 10 years. And there's just a lot of change. And I think that was hugely important, and something I want to continue into this year ahead is being okay with being alone and learning how to use that time to explore myself and finding independence. I think getting married really young, that was one of my biggest fears was, am I going to lose my identity? Am I just going to fall victim to being someone's wife? And that's a beautiful identity. I love that role. I'm obsessed with my husband. I think he knows this. I love him so much. I could go on and on and on, but no one wants to hear that. I just think I also want to grow myself and know who I am when no one's around and know what drives me. If, everyone left my world today, like what would drive me and wake me up in the morning? And I never wanted to lose sight of my own identity, of what makes me me. And I think I had that time this past year, as challenging as it was, to really build that strong foundation. And in the year ahead, my ways that I'm going to even push this further is I have 5 things that I'm hopefully going to talk through today. So 1, therapy. I think continuing to commit to self-discovery and healing my past and learning about myself is going to help me find inspiration. I think it's given me a lot of clarity throughout my life, and with a clear sort of windshield, I'm able to drive my car in a direction that I'm mindful and proud of, and I can see my whole surroundings. And I think it's in those moments where we have clarity that inspiration can be born. So that's one piece of it. I also found a drama therapist, which is incredible. And she actually was an actress, which is so fun. So she's super aligned with my interests, and we talk about movies. And when I don't know how to express my feelings, I'll describe a scene, which just, it only helps my creative side and my inspiration. So it's awesome. The second thing is, and I will say, I know it's a huge blessing that I'm able to afford and allot time to therapy, and it can be really challenging and it does not work for everyone. So I just have to add that caveat. And maybe on our site, we can provide some other types of resources if therapy is not an option for you, because there are types of therapeutic things. We do have our prompts, our journal prompts. I think that's a form of therapy, of connecting with yourself and writing down your feelings. So there are free ways of doing it. I think for myself, I'm able to kind of pursue therapy. So that is something I'm committing to. But yeah, second, I think, is giving myself the space to play and try, and not taking myself so seriously. I don't take myself seriously, and I think I want to continue to do that, but I also want to allot time in my day where I have nothing on my plate. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be anywhere. And maybe creativity will spark, And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I want to give myself time to chill. That's not really in my nature. I'm a Virgo sun, for people who don't know, and everyone's probably rolling their eyes like this LA bitch, but I'm a Virgo sun, Sagittarius rising, and a Taurus moon, if that means anything to anyone. But a Virgo, very typical Virgo nature is to overschedule their lives and lean into routines. And I do love that. But I want to also give myself time to have free thoughts and free playtime. Like we used to have recess. What happened to that? I want to have recess. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have recess every day where I get to just do whatever I want to do. And then the third way I'm going to bring inspiration into my life in this next year is bringing my friends in on my creative hobbies, interests, and things. I think obviously we do that with PS We Have No Plan. We post online in that capacity, but I'm writing a short story, for example. I want to share that with a friend or read it to Luke. I already have sent some of my friends songs in the past, and that's been really fun to share. And there's no bigger compliment than when someone says to me, hey, I'd love to read something you're working on, or listen to a new song you wrote, or hear a poem, or hey, I read this blog post and it meant something to me, or it made me feel something. That is like the best thing anyone can ever say to me. So no one knows that unless you say it, right? No one knows how to give you love unless you kind of express how you feel love. And so that is definitely a way I feel love. And I want to tell my friends that, my family that, and I want to continue to share creative works with them and get their feedback and see how they react. And I think that will help me feel more inspired. And fourth, this wonderful brand we're working on. I want to continue to build PS. It's a source of inspiration for me today, but I want it to be an even stronger one in the future. I think committing to yourself in a way where there's no strings attached, like there's no investor in our brand at the moment yet. We don't make money from this yet, but it is this beautiful time where we have no strings attached. It's just us committing to our interests and passions and showing up for ourselves and each other every single day. We talk every single day about this brand. We post on social media, we record podcasts, we write blog posts, we edit our content, we work on our no plans page, we add to our Pinterest board, we talk about color schemes, we dream what's next, we're working on some products coming soon. Things like that. I want to continue to build this brand. It's been immensely helpful so far, and I just see it continuing to be a source of inspiration this next year. And finally, I feel like I'm talking really fast, but it's hard when you're talking to yourself. You're like, what's a normal speed? Anyways, The last thing is I'm going to remind myself of this word, inspiration, this goal that I have for myself. I journal every single morning, and so I'm going to write the word inspiration on top of my journal every morning, or my page every morning. I'm going to tell Luke how I felt inspired every night. I don't know if it's going to be every night, but I'm going to try. I'm just going to remind myself that this is my goal. And I think it's really easy to feel bogged down by goal setting at the beginning of years, because on social media and with friends and family, they're like, what are your goals for the year? And maybe this is just like a me thing, but I feel embarrassed being like, finding more inspiration in my life. Like, that feels weird to say because it feels so ethereal and out there and whatever, or even like childlike. And I think a lot of people like to set tangible goals. Like, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to incorporate X amount of vegetables into my diet, or I want to reach this career pivotal moment at my business. They're just more tangible goals, and it's easier to relate to people when you have similar goals. So I'm going to remind myself in my own way, and this is my goal for the year. This is whether or not, I don't care how it sounds to someone else, this is my goal, and this is what drives me, and this is what wakes me up in the morning. This is what moves me, and I want to continue to explore it. So that's my last thing that I'm going to do as a way to commit to myself and focus on this word. And yeah, I mean, I think you'll probably see this on social media, and I'd love to hear what your word is, or if you're also trying to get creative and want to do it with me, maybe we can talk and inspire each other, because it can be, like I said, an intimidating world. And as I get older, like the ripe age of 27, obviously I have so much more to learn, but still, as I get older, I'm more acutely aware of how precious and special life is. And, you know, I've had people in my life pass away, and like so many of us have. And I think it's just a really strong reminder that it's our time here is short. And I just want to be mindful about how I live my life. And I want to have fun every day. I want to build a special life and, you know, find magic and capture it on camera. And I want to, that sounds so cheesy, but it's true. That's what I want to do. And I want to explore the entertainment world, and all the things I mentioned, I want to do because life is short. And I think everyone should go after what their heart tells them to. Obviously, we have real shit to handle, and we're all adults, and reality is an important place to live, but God, delusion, man, there's something about being delusional and dreaming big that is just so awesome. I think I saw Aubrey Plaza talk about this, of someone asked her, how are you so successful as an actress today? And she's like, delusion. Like, it's like people were like, what's your backup plan? And you're becoming an actress. Good luck with that. Rolling their eyes at her. And she was just like, I was just delusional the entire time. I was like, this is going to happen for me. And I think I've started to live in this land of a little bit of delusion where I'm like, this is going to happen for me. I trust in the universe and higher powers that be, and God and whatever else. I'm a spiritual person. I'm connected to a lot of different things. And I just have belief that if you put it out there and you work hard at it and you say you're going to do it and you chip away at your dreams, they're going to come to fruition. And maybe that is delusional, but that's how I feel. This was sort of strange, talking to myself about myself. I hope it encouraged you to do something fun with your life, or set a word for your year, or, you know, maybe you need a creative partner, and I am that person for you. Just DM me. Seriously. I love talking to people. I love connecting. I love talking about creative projects. So whatever you have working on, I want to hear about it. And I'll share mine too. This was my solo episode of PS We Have No Plan. We post a new podcast every Thursday. Our new site is www.pswehavenoplan.com. We are PS We Have No Plan across all social medias, and God, thank you for listening. Thank you for coming along with us. This is the coolest project Emily and I have ever worked on, and it's so fulfilling, and it's so awesome that, you know, we have anyone listening to us. It's really cool. So, or following along, or, you know, doing any of the things we put out there. So thank you. We love you, and we'll see you next week.
I woke up in the morning and the sun broke through the open curtains. The birds sang too and they said, "This is a day to celebrate."